Welcome to Book Buddies, the podcast full of book reviews, rankings, and all sorts of activities with books. I'm Louisa Hammond, self-proclaimed book dragon with a Bachelor of Arts in English with an emphasis in creative writing, as well as theater. So, I recently finished reading The Queen of Nothing, which is the final book in the Folk of the Air Trilogy, or the Cruel Prince Trilogy, as it's sometimes called. And since I read the first two books before I started this podcast, instead of reviewing just The Queen of Nothing, I'm going to give you all of my spoiler-free thoughts on the Folk of the Air Trilogy. Now, as always, this is just my opinion. So if you disagree, that's fine. Just don't be rude about it. Now, with all that being said, let's jump into it. Before I give you my thoughts on the Folk of the Air Trilogy, here is what it's about. Our main character is Jude, and she is a mortal living in Elfheim ever since her adoptive father, Maddox, who is her half-sister Vivi's father, murdered her parents when she was a child, and he took his daughter Vivi along with Jude and her twin sister Taryn to Elfheim to live with them. Now, in the present, Jude has ambitions to gain power so she can gain respect from the fairies, as many look down on her and her twin sister Taryn due to being mortal. And throughout the trilogy, we see numerous betrayals and schemes made for both power and love. The story and writing style sort of reminds me of the Hunger Games, as both are written in first-person present tense and focus on the world as opposed to the romance. Although I would consider the Folk of the Air more of a romance than the Hunger Games. So, something I really liked about this trilogy was there were a lot of things that it did differently. I liked how when the story proper begins, Jude has been living in the new and different world for most of her life, even though she was born in the regular world, which I think gives the book an interesting perspective compared to other young adult fantasy novels. Something else that stood out to me about this series, which I rather liked, was how untrustworthy and morally gray a lot of the characters were, and that our main character isn't even exempt from this. Jude is quite ambitious throughout the series, and some of her motivations are more often seen in villainous, antagonistic characters. I mean, she practically turns Carden, the male lead who is a prince, into a bit of a puppet ruler for a year, even after he confesses he loves her. Although, considering what he did to her in their past, maybe he sort of deserves it, but still, not something you see many young adult female leads doing in general. However, while nearly all of these characters are morally gray and meant to be difficult to understand at times, there were moments when I was confused about some of the actions. I won't go into too much detail because of spoilers, but I think if you read the trilogy, you will understand what I mean when I say sometimes I don't understand what you're doing. Similarly, I felt like there are a lot of characters, and because there were so many, some seemed sort of underdeveloped and interchangeable. There were times when I was reading about a character and thinking, who are you again? Oh, right, Karen's other friend, or, yeah, that person who helped Jude. So that's something I didn't love about this series. With my noble flaws of this series out of the way, let's get into what I consider the highlight of the Folk of the Air trilogy, which would have to be the world of the story. Elfheim is a magical world of fairy-like creatures and has a strong magical nature feeling that I feel is often underrepresented in literature. However, the story also takes place in modern times, and there are scenes that take place in the mortal world, which I enjoy a lot, as it reminds me of series such as Harry Potter and Narnia, where the normal world takes place in a modern day, and the fantasy world has a more classic feeling without traditional technology. This is emphasized with the first chapter of The Cruel Prince after the prologue, where Maddox kills Jude's parents in the modern world. Chapter 1. In Fairy, there are no fish sticks, no ketchup, no television. Really shows how different the world of Fairy is, even if it's just one sentence long, and you get that we're not in Kansas anymore, we're in Elfheim, where it's not going to be fun or simple for our main characters anymore. There are also great examples of using some classic tropes, especially from Greek mythology. You have different prophecies and characters trying to work around said prophecies, or the prophecies ending up being something that people didn't expect. So, as somebody who loves Shakespeare and classic Greek mythology, I really enjoyed that aspect of the Folk of the Air Trilogy. Overall, I thought that the Folk of the Air Trilogy was a really compelling, well-written series that had enough classic ideas for familiarity and enough new ideas to help it stand out. I recommend it to people who are looking for a fantasy series with a nature-based world, complex characters and relationships, and a fight for the throne. I will definitely be reading the Stolen Air duology soon. And once again, if you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends and follow me. I'm Louisa Hammond, and I'll see you next time.